What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Trout Wrangler Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Garrity. That guy back there is our show's vibe curator, Mr. Maverick. Um, we got a really cool episode coming up today with a dude that I've been waiting to talk to for a while. Honestly, he's one of the best people in this space. He also runs his own podcast, and he's pretty damn good at it. Um, and he's actually helped me with some stuff, giving me some pointers, and I've been waiting to pick his brain for a long time. Mr. Hunter Levine from the Captain's Collective podcast, Drifter Fish Club. He does a ton of stuff, and on it, like, I can't wait for this episode just because I've been wanting to pick his brain for a long time and hear a little bit about what he does. So we're gonna get him in here in a second, and before we do, I just want to thank the companies that help make this possible: Bahio Sunglasses, Afueta Coffee, Free Fly Apparel, Loon Outdoors, Temple Fork Outfitters, and there we go. Now for Hunter Levine. What's up, guys? Like I said in the intro, we do have an interview today from what I think is probably one of the best guys in our space here of the podcasting universe, and just has some pretty cool people on his podcast. You've probably seen them. You've literally landed like all the legends. But I'll kick it over to you to let you introduce yourself a little bit, Hunter.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for having me on. My name's Hunter Levine, and I started the Captain's Collective podcast about 7 years ago. And then also last year, helped start the Drifter Fish Club, which is kind of like an old school hunt club model, but people sign up, they get a membership, and we put together events and hosted trips, everything from going to lodges to going to fisheries that don't have a lot of infrastructure and creating, using rental properties and people to cook and environments like that just to try to help people build community and get outside and fish.
Dude, yeah, see, I think that's a big thing coming up now is community. Dude, you see them all over the place. You got them all in your backyard. We got them down here, and it's really cool to see, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But so let's get into it real quick. What or who got you into fishing, and what made you want to switch over to fly fishing over conventional?
Yeah, so I've been fishing my whole life. I'm a fifth generation Floridian, and everybody in my lineage, all the way from the originals that came over to Florida, were fur trappers and mullet fishermen, and that was their job. And my dad was a Florida Fish and Wildlife officer when I was a kid, and we didn't have a lot of money, and he worked out a deal where we were able to live on Green Swamp West, which is just outside of Tampa, Florida. I spent the first 5 or 6 years of my life on that property, just wading around behind my dad in ponds. And I fished a little bit, but I didn't have what I call an outdoor pageant dad. He didn't force me to, throw a fly rod if I didn't want to. He didn't force me to fish if I didn't want to. But I spent a lot of time, just kind of stomping around in my little rubber boots and looking under logs and really I think I'd say if I had to put one person as the person who got me into it, I would obviously put my dad. But I look back to you, and my mom was really supportive and helped create opportunities for me. And then my dad's buddies, and the people that he brought into my life through hunting and fishing opportunities, they were all really warm and welcome to me. And so it's kind of like that old saying, it takes a village. It's not really, if it had to be one person, it would be my dad. But I look back and I see a lot of people that fan that flame in me and helped me understand why this is important and what opportunities are in the outdoor space in the woods and water. And then from a fly fishing standpoint, I didn't grow up doing really a lot of fishing trips, but one of the trips that I got a chance to do growing up was just going up to Tennessee outside of Pigeon Forge. And at first I would kind of run around and chase smallmouth, and had a lot of fun doing that. And that was some of the earliest that I can remember independent fishing, where my dad would drop me off somewhere and say, okay, I'm gonna drop you off here, work your way down, I'll pick you up at the Hardee's. And I just run around with a little ultralight spinning rod catching smallmouth, and it was a lot of fun. And did a little bit of trout fishing when I was a kid, but really would get frustrated and agitated at getting tangled and getting caught in streams. I thought the fish were small, and so as I got older, I grew up just doing a little bit of everything. I think it really was, I just got into sight fishing. I started to see tails or see belly crawlers or just be in clean water where you could see fish. And then, that bug really caught me. And even to this day, I don't think I'm fly fishing over conventional. I'm just sight fishing over blind fishing. And so I don't really, I'm not an elitist about, fly or conventional,
Yeah.
but I do prefer sight fishing. And um that was probably in my early 20s when I started to kind of go down that path, mid to early 20s, and caught the bug, man. And I just, if it's up to me, I want to throw a fly. But I always try to position myself in some sort of sight fishing opportunity if I can.
Yeah, dude, I think that's like a lot of people in Florida. They're like, "Oh man, you can catch fish where you can see them." So that's all me.
Yeah.
You hear like so many people. They're like, "Well, I'm not like a red drum fisherman. I'm just a sight fisherman."
Yeah. We were looking through some photos the other day, like, um, my best buddy Josh Wells at the time he had a John boat that he would duck hunt out of, and we started really getting the itch to chase redfish. So we strapped a cooler on the back and cut a piece of bamboo and try to pull each other around with, no mud foot or anything, and had a lot of fun. And that, it's I think it's neat, like just all the different varieties of fishing that Florida has. And
Yeah.
I've been offshore, and I've done all sorts of types of fishing, and they all have their own little unique thing. But sight fishing tends to be the bug that people around me catch the hardest.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like that, or I think tarpon fishing. That's like I caught that tarpon bug when I was down there. Bad, dude. I went
Yeah,
down there to.
ultimate sight fishing.
Oh yeah,
I
dude.
mean, well, you don't have to sight fish them, but I mean, to me, like my dad, he actually just retired, but he became a fishing guide and did that for a little over a decade, probably closer to 2 decades, and he did live bait tarpon trips a lot, and it's still super visual. But yeah, when you sight fish something as big as a tarpon, that's a pretty remarkable thing to see.
Oh yeah, dude. It's kind of cool. Like over there on the Space Coast, you can catch them in a ditch. Like,
Hmm.
you probably know what I'm talking about. You catch them in a ditch, and
Yeah.
there's literally 1,000 of them fighting over a gurgler, and you can see them with their backs out of the water. I'm like, dude, this is unbelievable. I remember the first time I went and did it. I was like, I had a bass boat at the time. I hooked one tarpon on a gurgler, and I said, that bass boat's getting sold tomorrow. Didn't end up selling it the next day, but shortly after.
Yeah.
But how does the fishing in your part of Florida differ from other areas, and kind of like what makes it unique?
Yeah, Florida's a really interesting place. If somebody hadn't spent time here, depending on where you visit in Florida, you could have a totally different
Oh
experience
yeah.
culturally, geographically. It's a large state. Culturally, it's a diverse state, and our fisheries are really diverse too. So I live up in what they call the Forgotten Coast, and the Forgotten Coast has beautiful turtle grass flats. We have pine trees that go all the way to the shoreline. Lots of Spartina grass. We have, barrier islands that have sand. We have shoals. We have grass flats. We have sand creeks. We got puff mud creeks. We got oyster bars. It's a diverse place from a fish standpoint. We have, a great tarpon season, lots of great guides up and down our stretch of the coast. And we have, a really amazing red fishery, and, we have great trout, triple tail. So there's a lot to offer up here. It's really rural up here, and like I just got Starlink at my house. I live on a dirt road on 6 acres, and it's not when people say, "Oh, I've been to Florida," and they've been to Miami or Fort Lauderdale or
Not the
Tampa.
same.
All those places are very very populated. This part of Florida is pretty sleepy. 70% of my county that I live in is state and federal land. You can hunt, you can hike, you can bass fish. You can do all sorts of stuff. So it's peaceful up here. And again, there's a lot of great restaurants, a lot of great guides. It's a good culture. So hopefully that describes it enough
Oh
without getting
yeah,
me in trouble.
dude, it does. Dude, like that is completely true though. Like you could like there are parts of Florida that aren't all like Orlando. Not
Yeah.
like Miami, dude, but it's like don't get me wrong, like in Miami you can still do pretty well fishing wise. And
Hmm.
I remember I used to dude, I think it was New Year's Day one year. Woke up when I was living down there outside Ocala. Woke up and I was like, I'm just gonna get in the car and drive. And I ended up in Florida City. And I just went on a map, started zooming in, and I was like, oh, there's canal right there. Pulled up into the canal, there's peacock bass everywhere. And I'm
Hmm.
like, this is crazy. Went up to another one. There's like a Mayan cichlid, a snook, and a peacock bass all like next to each other. I was like, this is the wildest thing I've ever seen. And there's like
Yeah.
no place where you could see that other than in Florida.
Yeah, Miami's great too. They have Biscayne, which is beautiful,
Oh
crystal
yeah.
clear water. One of my favorite trips of the past few years. I went down and spent some time with my buddy Dan Diaz. He's a videographer and a DJ. He's a man of many traits and an incredibly fishy person. And we fished for like 3 or 4 days, sun up, sun down, out in his little boat, bonefish, permit, tarpon. I mean, all sorts of stuff firing off over there, and it's beautiful. And then on top of that, Miami's crowded and everybody
Yeah.
complains about the crowd, but I mean, Miami, while I was down there, I was hanging out in Cutler Bay, which is predominantly Cuban, and getting to
Yeah.
eat guava pastries and amazing home cooked food. And I mean, it's Florida has, at a minimum 5 different zones that feel like 5 different states, and they all have things that I like about them and things that I
Yeah.
don't.
Dude, I think you can feel like you're in like 5 different countries too, which is kind of cool. Cause like y'all, it's especially down there in Miami, man. It's like you got so many different little pockets to where it's like Robert Desir Farm Stand. You ever heard of that place
Hmm.
down there, dude? It's like it's insane how that's like a tourist attraction now. So it's kind of like tough, but it's like you could go there and it's like predominantly Hispanic, and you can get roadside tacos that are to die for. And
Hmm.
I did that, dude. I did that a couple times. I ended up regretting that on the way home, but going in, dude, those tacos are so damn good.
Yeah, it's a bold move, tacos on the road, but yeah, amazing people, amazing culture. We got Florida had a ton of cowboys back in the day. We got a bunch of redneck cowboy boot wearing guys
Oh
all
yeah,
across Florida. We got some amazing hunting communities, obviously amazing fisheries, salt and fresh. It's just hot down here, and
yeah,
we don't have mountains. So the only mountains we have are phosphate. So
yeah,
that doesn't really count. So, but it's a great place, and I love it. I have no intent on ever leaving Florida. But I think that people should plan to go to Florida and check out the different zones and see really all the diversity that the state has.
yeah, dude, for sure. My dog just whacked his head on the corner of my table. He's under here at my feet and he smashed it. I'm sorry, but
No, it's all good.
dude, I completely agree. I feel like people should completely like you know, experience, like you're saying, those parts of Florida that aren't Disney, that aren't Miami, and see kind of like how it is outside of those big cities. And another thing when I was down there that I noticed, dude, FWC does a great job with their WMA system for like
Mhm.
their public hunting opportunities and stuff like that. A lot of people are like, oh, it's way too hot to hunt down there. It's like, given, yeah, I'm up in my climber and I'm sweating bullets by the time I get up the tree, but like you have an opportunity to see big deer on all these different WMA systems. Dude, like I was looking the other day, who was it that I saw killed a giant deer? He said it was on private though. It was shoot. Uh he's a kid, he guides.
Probably Ryan Nitz, probably.
Um, is the
Was it
younger
Ryan?
kid? No, it was it Trey?
Trey
Um,
Michael?
yeah, I think that's who it was.
Yeah, Trey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a big one that he caught or he shot. I was like, dang, dude, that's a
Yeah.
giant. I was like, this
Knowing
is
Trey, he probably caught it. He probably caught it, you know. Probably tied up a little fly and sight fished a nice buck. But
oh yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of public lands, a lot of access. I mean, our country has, that's why a lot of these conversations about conservation and land management are so important. If you get outside of Florida, you realize, or get outside of the United States, you realize how unique and how important those places are. And Florida's filled with them. The biggest non-typical to date that was ever shot in Florida was a mile from my childhood room when I lived on Green Swamp West. And yeah, I mean, if you want a turkey hunt, if you want a deer hunt, we have ducks, we got quail plantations, we have all sorts of stuff that people can get into. And I think that, again, like, I just think that when people travel, I try not to define an area by, okay, if I went to one city or one zone, now I'm going to kind of transpose that across the whole thing. And,
Yeah,
Florida, like I said, I like all the zones, but you
I
go
do
over to
too.
the East Coast and it's a lot of surfer vibes over there, and, you come to the Gulf and it's a lot more country and rural, and you go to Jacksonville and they have all sorts of cool pockets and amazing fishery and great community in Jacksonville. And Tampa's its own unique bird down there. It's a massive bay. It's filled with a lot of amazing places for outdoorsmen to go and to check out.
Oh yeah. And not to do like the best part of it all is like the locals too. Like you can have some of the most interesting conversations with like locals. Like I had a conversation with a dude. I was at a Tampa Bay Rays game. And there's a dude with no shoes on behind me. Walked into the stadium with no shoes on. Dude's like, I've been living in St. Pete since I was like 2 years old. It's like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, dude. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. My youngest doesn't wear shoes almost ever, and she's been kicked out of a bunch of, if it's like something like a Publix, or she's been kicked out of Publix before and stuff like that. It's definitely a lot of strange people down here, as we know, with the notorious Florida man. There's a lot of heat and a lot of eccentric people, but it's a great
oh
place.
yeah, dude. I feel like shoes shouldn't even be required in Publix. Honestly, man. Like, I feel like it should be a God given right to not wear shoes in a Publix. But dude, I heard you did some ministry work before you got into all this stuff that you're doing now. Can you explain a little bit of that and kind of like how that impacted your decision to start like running trips and doing your podcast and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. So I started going to what they call a church plant when I was 16 years old, and that's just a church that is new and had just started. And I connected with a lot of great people there, and found a lot of benefit from being a part of that community. I learned a lot, and so as I got into kind of headed into college, I went to Florida State University, and I just wanted to, truthfully, I just wanted to. It wasn't like, oh, I really, really want to go into ministry, as much as it was, oh, I want to help people experience what I experienced. And I started, in what they would call first impressions, but helping with like volunteer teams on Sunday mornings, and helping with parking teams and set up tear down teams and things like that. And then I worked with middle school and high school for a while, and ended with college students, and learned a lot and met a lot of amazing people and grew a lot. And while I was doing that, I started the podcast from a place of, I didn't think, like, at the time, that anything vocationally would come from it, or I didn't think that I would even be having conversations about sponsors or hosted travel or anything like that. And I just wanted to meet people and learn and grow, and I was having fun and learning about fly fishing and saltwater fly fishing. And I was just really wanting to, get out and hear people's stories and meet them. And that's what the podcast was. And I started it. I had some help of some friends who I'm still friends with today. And yeah, like, it was if any, to say it was a side hustle would be an upsell. It was just really a fun thing to do when I started. And a lot of people in the fishing community were really generous with their time and willing to share. I think it was a really good time to start a podcast. Not that I had forecasted that. I'm not that smart. But and so I just, yeah, just kind of followed my nose and you interview somebody and you learn something, they tell you about somebody else, they help connect you, and you just kind of work your way down that path, and was able to meet some incredible people.
Dude, I think that's something that like has like very much so shocked me the most of doing this is the people that are like I'll get off with them and they'll send me a list of people to reach out to. And I'm like, dude, this is like almost like thank you so much. Because it's like you completely agree with like what you're saying. I kind of started this on accident. My girlfriend and I, like my girlfriend, not a huge fisherman, doesn't really know a fly rod from her elbow, and she was like, dude, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. She's like, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna start a podcast so I don't aggravate her. And
Mhm.
I didn't expect it to go past like 10 episodes. And then I was like, you know what? I'm kind of having fun with this. So,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And what I realized was that it was a space where, people who have had these amazing experiences and have learned a lot can share, and they can share their story, and they can share their philosophy and how they see things. And then from a listener standpoint, there's a lot of people all over the world and all over the US who, they're looking for stories. They want to hear that kind of. I think in our world today, there's a lot of 15-second sound bites, and they wanted to
yeah.
kind of just hear what is it like to have a beer, have a coffee with this person, and sit down and kind of hear how they started their business and how they fell in love with the outdoors and how their experience shaped them. So I think it was a really good time to start a podcast, but I also think too that a lot of people really helped me. I mean, a list way too long to list on this podcast helped me along the way, and I think it's about positioning yourself and saying, "Hey, like, let's pursue this from a good, honest place, and as opportunities present themselves, try to position yourself where you can capitalize on them."
Yeah. And dude, like it's crazy how that stuff can like kind of just fall into your lap too, to where it's like you are in a position where you can capitalize on something like that. Hasn't happened to me yet. I tend to have shit for luck, but at some point it will. But you run some hosted trips with the Drifter Club. I was like, where have those trips taken place, and like what were some of your species that you were targeting in those places?
So we've done two trips in the Big Bend of Florida with Jay Carson and Evan Snow and a team down there, which is a really cool fishery, really really rural, really remote, and just some amazing folks down there. And so we did some trips down there. We've done a trip to the Yucatan Peninsula with Fish Clack on the Fly. Had an
Oh,
amazing time
sweet.
chasing permit and bonefish and tarpon down there. We've done Craig, Montana. Did a trip to Costa Rica 2 years ago. That was really great with the crew at Four Corners. I've done two trips to Soulfly Lodge. Last year we went to East End and chased bonefish. Had a few permit shots there. Louisiana, St. Augustine. I feel like Pelican Chandelier. Um, and I might be missing a few, but it's roughly about a trip a month, with the exception of we went to Los Locos and did striped marlin
Oh,
in
dude, that's
November.
sick.
Yeah, but it's about one a month, with the exception of Thanksgiving to the end of the holidays. Everybody's pretty busy. The guys in the club are, they're still running businesses. They got everything from we just had our first drifter baby. She was born 2 weeks ago, and we got everything from infants to full grown adults, but a lot of people have middle school, high school kids, and so this time of year we don't really do too much traveling. And then coming up, we got Everglades, going back to Mexico, going to Jackson Hole,
Oh, that's gonna be
going
sweet.
to Belize, going to Homosassa, going to Brunswick, Georgia, which is a really cool, amazing fishery, and ending the year in Oman. So it's about one a month, and predominantly southeast, but we target redfish, bonefish, sight fishing things.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though, dude. Like that, I was down in Mexico. That Ishkalak, dude. I never knew how to
Mhm.
pronounce it, so I'm glad you just said that. It looked like it was Excalak, and I was like, I wonder what that
Yeah.
is, because it's like we stayed in Cancun, and I was like, I wonder what that place is. And then I saw Ishkalak on the fly when I started doing this, and I was like, I still have no idea how to pronounce that. But dude, it's
Yeah.
sweet. Those guys are pretty cool down there, and those Four Corners guys are awesome.
Yeah, yeah, man. Ishkalak's really cool. It's a small fishing village. I mean, it's very much a village, and they have Ishkalak on the Fly and the crew over at X Flat. So they have two great lodges down there, and it's beautiful, you know. And it's relatively like we were just doing a project that we're being a little hush hush about with some of the content because we're not ready. But I was driving back from. The Keys, and it took me longer to get from the Keys to my house than it does for me to get from my house to Ishkalak.
Oh my
So
gosh.
you can get there pretty easy,
Yeah.
and it's a really cool place. Lots of good people down there.
Dude, that ride in the Keys is brutal, dude. Depending on where you're coming from. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
holy
Depending on
cow.
what traffic you hit and
Yeah.
everything, but so yeah, that's what we kind of have queued up. Looking at a couple other, I'm sure I forgot a few things, but looking at a couple options for 2027, couple things that we might do in 2026. And yeah, we're excited. We're having a lot of fun with it. We got an amazing group of people, and we're loving it.
Heck yeah, dude. Y'all do have a great group of guys. I know Justin's a part of it, isn't he?
Yeah, are you talking about Justin Anderson
Yeah.
or Justin Wood? Justin Wood.
Justin Anderson.
Okay, because
Yeah.
we got a guy in North Carolina named Justin Wood,
I'll have
and I
to
know you're
look
a
him
North
up.
Carolina guy.
Huh.
But Justin is not a member of Drifter, but
Ah.
we did our St. Augustine trip and worked with Justin. I've known Justin for years, and we had a great time over there in St. Augustine with the Historic Coast Outfitter crew.
Oh yeah, dude. I think I was listening to your podcast when you were over there with those guys. Cause did you
Yeah,
guys do
yeah,
like a little round table kind of thing?
Justin, I've done roundtables with him before. We actually didn't do a podcast on the St. Augustine trip. I'm still, sometimes I'll do podcasting and sometimes I won't. I try to put the members' experience first, and
Yeah.
sometimes that equates to, I'm cooking steaks or, helping with something, and the podcasting falls to the back burner, and you kind of know how that goes. If you
Oh
put
yeah.
something on the back burner, it's not, it doesn't cook back there. It's not a back burner.
Nah.
It's like putting it on the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, like I've had some things that I've done like with that. I'm like, dude, this thing's never gonna come back up.
Yeah.
Like I tried to put together I'm trying to put together like a whole thing for New Year's with like all my guests. I'm like, oh shit. And I was
Mhm.
like I put it on the back burner for like a few minutes. I was like, well, that thing's never coming back up. But what other places would you like to go with the Drifters Fly Club? Could you see yourself going like anywhere else? Like outside of the United States, you think?
Oh yeah, like I mean, we have I got guys all the time. Like one of the things that's been really great about the having the podcast is I've met a lot of people that I consider friends now,
Yeah.
and they'll text me about cool operations. I mean, Gaspé Bay has some really amazing stuff happening. We're looking at Alaska. I'd like to go back to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of Central and South American countries that are interesting to look at. State-wise, we're still figuring out what freshwater's role is in the club. So we are going to Jackson Hole. Last year we went to Craig, Montana. Craig was awesome. It was really fun. I would love to do more freshwater in the years to come, but at the end of the day, too, a lot of the guys in the club they want to go saltwater,
Yeah.
and so yeah, we're still kind of figuring out some of those things. Can't wait to go back to the Bahamas. I love the Bahamas. I'm itching to do that. So we're still figuring it out.
Yeah. Where do you guys go
Every
in the
day,
Bahamas?
Argentina.
Oh shoot.
Oh well, we don't have the Bahamas booked right now. We don't
Okay.
have it on the calendar, but I'm sure we will go back. We have some ideas on how we might want to fish it and do it that are a little bit different than just going to a lodge
Yeah.
to go into one lodge. So we're still figuring that out. So 2026 is pretty set in stone with what we're doing, with the small exception of maybe a few small add-ins.
That's cool, dude. So my roommate in college, his grandparents have a place in Eleuthera in the Bahamas. Dude, it's awesome over there. And like,
Yeah, I haven't been there. Yeah,
dude, so I didn't see like a lodge or anything while I was over there. And what's tough is you got to go to Freeport to get anything for like flies and tackle and stuff like that. That's the
yeah.
only tough part, I think. But
No, it sounds cool. Yeah.
that could be somebody's end to just start a fly shop at a Luther, go down there and grow their dreads out and just live in the Bahamas.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a bad idea.
No, not at all. Hell, if I did have a girlfriend and a bunch of stuff to leave behind back here, I'd probably go and try and do it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
but my girlfriend's got a pretty good job, so can't make that move soon. But let's transition to your podcast real quick. Like, what drove you to start podcasting, and what made you choose the name Captain's Collective?
Yeah, well, what drove me to podcasting was really just my own interest in hearing people's stories and meeting people and learning. And I think when I'm at my best, that's the motive still. Like I still get excited, and not just with quote unquote big name guests, but I just get excited when I meet interesting people who I think are doing really cool stuff, just to get an opportunity to hear their story and hear how they think. And that's really what started it. I didn't know anybody in podcasting. I didn't know anybody in media. The part of Florida I live in is not very media big part of the machine, if you will. And so that's really what led me to it, was my own curiosity, which I'm trying to keep at the forefront of what I'm doing and have some exciting future projects and ideas on how I want to switch it up and just continue to have fun with it and continue to learn. And then the Captain's Collective, like it really wasn't anything fancier than I'm interviewing predominantly captains and I'm kind of
Yeah,
collecting their stories. And, collective is a big, I by no means came up with that, that's everywhere. And so, yeah, I just thought it was a simple name that people could kind of understand what I was doing. And when we were coming up with Drifter Fish Club, we had a list of like 70 different ideas we were coming up with, and 69 of them were terrible. And it was not. I consider myself a creative person. I have fun with that, but naming things is not my specialty. So I just went really simple with it.
that's how I am too, dude. Like I stink at naming stuff. I've
Trout Wrangler is pretty creative, though.
dude, so
Trout Wrangler's pretty great.
so I'll tell you how I came up with it. So I was sitting in the movie theater, and my girlfriend talked me into going to Twisters too. And
What's that? The movie
yeah, the
Twisters.
movie
Okay.
Twisters. And she was over there next to me, like talking about how handsome Glenn Powell was, which given I don't swing that way. Glenn Powell, handsome dude. Sitting there, and my girlfriend is like sitting there, and he starts ripping around in this. It's the part where they're playing the Luke Combs song, and he hops out of his big ram that he's ripping around in the field, and he goes, "What's up, guys? It's the Tornado Wrangler." And I looked over at my girlfriend. I was like, "I just figured out my podcast name."
There you go.
And I was like, "Trout Wrangler." And that's how I got it. Not really original, but put my own spin on it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, nothing's really original anyway.
Yeah,
So
dude.
I
Not,
think you passed the copyright there,
yeah,
fine.
I think so. I hope so. There might be a cease and assist coming my way if I didn't. But who's been one guest that had like a really meaningful and inspiring story to you that you've talked to? And like feel free to list as many guests as you want. It doesn't have to be just one.
Yeah, well, I think the most meaningful podcast I've ever done is in particular, the second podcast I did with my dad. I think the older I get, I have what I call compounding gratitude, and I have an increased interest in what my dad thinks about things and how he sees the world. And I did that podcast with him, and that just felt really meaningful. I think, in general, even if you don't have a podcast and you're not a podcaster, if you have a good relationship with your dad, I think, man, what a cool thing to do, just to sit down and have a conversation with him about life and about the
Yeah.
things that you're passionate about. And just thinking that, we had a health scare with my dad during tarpon season. He was running a bunch of trips, and he had 5 trips in a row, a day off, and 5 more trips lined up. And he had some heart issues. He was just right on the verge of a really bad heart attack and got in just in time. And they had to do, they had to put stents in. And
Oh my
and I
gosh.
thought, man, how cool is it that my grandchildren could listen to that, and I think about my grandpa and I remember having conversations with him, but, I think that's really meaningful. And I think, even if you don't have a podcast, maybe you should just do a podcast with your dad just to have it, for you
Yeah.
and your family. But, so it's probably the most meaningful. But, as far as guests go, you had him on recently. Vince Segura I consider Vince a very close friend, but I also kind of, I mean, in a world that I think defines heroes by how many followers you have or what big projects you've been on or whatever, what fish pictures you have. Vince is like, I consider him a close friend, but I consider him a hero too. The way that he's conducted himself, the community that they've built with skinny
Oh
water
yeah.
culture, and his willingness, I think, just to unapologetically be himself.
Yes.
And I've learned a lot from that just, has inspired me in a lot of ways to want to be myself and want to be open and vulnerable. And we did a podcast on mental health because, I've gone through challenging past couple years, and Vince had been honest and open with me about some of his struggles. And we did a podcast that I think, it's not necessarily the craziest, coolest fishing stories, but it was really meaningful to me just to have that type of conversation that feels
Yeah.
like what you would have on the boat with a good friend about something that a lot of people reached out and said, man, I'm really glad you guys touched on that. Not because we're mental health experts. I'm far from that. But, so I'd say probably Vince's, I mean, story wise, gosh, like, I've interviewed over 150 people. And, everybody's pretty interesting. Everybody's, I think the more I interview people, like people think about, oh, like, are you going to run out of people? And I'm like, man, I think there's more people now that are interesting and worthy of having on the podcast than ever. So I don't really feel that. So I think that'd be my answers though.
Yeah, dude, Vince, that dude, he is so awesome, dude. Just like himself, like the whole birding thing that he does is really cool. I watched that listers. He sent me it. He's like, "You got to watch this," and I watched it. I was like, "Dude,
Yeah.
this is unbelievable." He had me downloading eBird from that show, but like, dude, that podcast you did with him was unbelievable, dude. Like, it's not often that you see two dudes just sit down and talk about their mental struggles like that. And, there's probably more people that than we know that have stuff like that than they share. And it's like, I think that's something, especially in this day and age, it's, you got to, I always will be a dude that's just going to reach out to his buddies, just like out of the blue, and be like, man, you good? Just to kind of like check up because you never know, man. Like I've seen it way too many times with kids from my high school and even just some of my friends that get in a dark place and they feel like they have nobody to talk to. We've all been there.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's probably in its own way. I mean, I could answer that question a little different every day with different guests, but that one really stands out to me because I think that we just need more of that. If you're alive, you have a soul, and if you have a soul, you have wounds. And
Exactly.
learning how to. I've had to do a lot of work in confronting issues in my life and confronting wounds, and many of them self-inflicted, and life's really hard, and we don't make it easier on ourselves a lot of the time too. I can at least speak for me. And there's a phrase that I love in a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death that I use this phrase a lot: to speak is to break the spell.
Yeah.
And I think that, when folks like Vince are vulnerable and they share things, what they're doing is they're kind of breaking the spell. And we had a lot of people reach out to us and say, "Hey, man, me too. I've struggled too." And it's not just about suicidal ideation, but also depression,
Yeah.
anxiety, all sorts of things that is just part of, I think, the human experience. And I think, I think that Vince was was really kind and had a lot of courage to speak about it openly.
I agree, and I think it's one of those things that kind of gets like lost in translation too. This might not be the best thing to say, but it's like, you know, it's like men have feelings too. I mean, I probably could have said that a little bit better, but in a world where it's like so focused on other things, it's like we completely forget that there are males that, yeah, I think it's like there's a crazy stat out there. I don't know exactly what it is, but like I want to say it's like 2 men an hour kill themselves every day. And it's not like you're
Hmm.
saying, it's not just that. It's like there are guys too that like they also have, body image issues. But
Hmm.
it's like I struggled with that for a while because I
Hmm.
like, but you know, we all like the more people talk about it, the more like you're saying, like you just said, everybody just got to talk to it, check up on your boys, and that's the only thing that you can do. Make sure your homies are good and give them a hug, check up on them.
Yeah.
It's like my thing.
Yeah. Well,
It's like it's you. People get hell for giving another man a hug. It's like, man, you know what? I don't care if you give me hell. I'm gonna give another man a hug because that could change somebody's day.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I was really grateful that, I think because when I started at least the work side of what I do, I didn't think that I had to be somebody different than myself to be successful because I didn't think that it would become what it is. I didn't think I would have success. And so, I've just always been drawn to people who are themselves, and I've tried to go through this the best I can, being myself. And the fishing industry definitely doesn't need more kind of I'm hardcore,
Right.
I'm badass, we just don't need more of that, in my opinion. And I'm not interested in being that.
Same here.
And I want to be myself and let guests be themselves. And I think that it's okay to talk about the human experience in fishing podcasts because while we're hunting and fishing, some of our most meaningful conversations happen in those places. So why not let them happen in the podcast?
Exactly. That's my thing too. Is it's like, dude, like I tell people on here all the time. I was like, dude, come on here, be yourself. It's like I'm gonna be myself. It's like
Mhm.
everybody should be themselves, and I think it's like, you know what? Be comfortable in your skin. Like everybody's awesome. I mean, there's some people that are criminals that aren't awesome, but it's like, you know
Yeah.
what?
Well, it's
Everybody's
hard to
weird.
do though.
Yeah.
It's hard to do because I'll give you an example. If you ever saw the infamous Justin Anderson netting Vince DeGura, we've talked about both of them. We were at Redfish Camp, and it was one of Drifter's first things that we did. And I invited Vince because, man, I was like, man, I want Vince to be a part of this. And Vince was working a top water from the middle of the boat, like he wasn't even on the bow, and had this monster. It's the biggest pompano I've ever seen come up. Like, I mean, there was moments where guys on the boat thought it was a permit, and then Vince gets it to the boat, and then he's backed up on the center console, and Justin. Long arms tries to net him, and the fish comes off, and there's this funny audio progression of
Oh,
profanity to Vince being like making a inaudible, to the camera guy going, God bless him, and then people were just like ripping Vince, ripping Justin. This guy didn't know how to net a fish. And it's like, Justin knows how to net a fish.
yeah.
Like, but it's just like, I mean, I think it's, it's at the same time, I think that for every, kind of backseat quarterback or person that, you hear this phrase in fishing all the time, that guy can't even fish.
Right.
You hear people say that, that guy, that girl can't even fish. What do you mean can't even fish? Can't fish as good as you? Like, okay, well, maybe in the fish Olympics you'll get the gold medal, and that person, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
can't even fish. Like, I've fished with a lot of people, and they all, in fact, can fish. And some people are better than others, but I would question why we put such a high value on that.
Right.
Some of the people I enjoy fishing with the most, it's not because of their technical abilities, but just because they're amazing people and they love it. And
Yeah.
So I think like, yeah, but I do think it's hard for people to put themselves out there. But I also want to have a podcast that people can be real. And,
Same.
I try to let guests, I try to let guests set the tone for what the conversation is going to be like so that people can get a real feel for what those folks are like.
Exactly, dude. And it's like, there's some times where it's like I'll go into some where like, you know what, I'm not gonna try to drop an F bomb today. But it's like, somebody will throw down like a F bomb or like say shit. It's like, you know what, I'll reciprocate because it's like, you know what? Let it fly. It's like, if that's how you talk, that's how you talk. That's cool. That not I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's like that's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
kind of how I am. It's like we all speak a certain way. That's like, yeah, that's the thing that like I've seen on your podcast. You got real people, real conversations. And I think I don't see that on some other ones where it's like it kind of seems like they're dudes that I listen to and that I've had on, and it's like they're kind of different on another podcast. And I'm like,
Hmm.
damn. I was like, that's kind of cool. But it's like yours are awesome, dude. I really like how you do yours. And that's
Thank you. I appreciate
do
that.
like and I like how you do transitions on yours too. I know I messaged you one time. I was like, dude, what are you running that with? You said two iPhones. I was like, that is insane. Two iPhones. That's pretty cool. I had to figure out a way to do that without the two iPhones part. Like I want to run like an iPad and then my laptop and then have like.
Yeah.
Do you use one of the little mixer boards?
I used a small device. It's called the Zoom H6. I don't think they even make the one I have. I have two of them. It's like really simple. So I've used the same gear the whole time. Like I with what I started with, an SM58 Shure microphone into a Zoom 6 recorder, and I don't have video for all of them. I'm working on that. But yeah, just keep it. I keep it simple. I try to set it and pick a good setting. I do all mine in person, so that helps a lot. Like not everybody can do that, but I find that to be really helpful. And yeah, it's a pretty simple setup. It's small.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to like simplify mine a little bit more, but also have it so that like I can have a better experience for somebody while they are there in person. And I think like that's
Mhm.
that's been one of the things for me that I'm like, damn, dude, like I'm kind of getting in the deep end without floaties on this part here.
Yeah. I see those boards and I'm like, I don't even know what I would do with all those knobs. And,
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not DJing a music festival. I'm just,
Yeah.
setting up a mic and having a conversation. And if you're in a good environment and the person speaks into the mic, I mean, it's going to be good audio.
Yeah. See, that's one of my things. I'm like, all right, I just need to get like one more microphone. I'm just gonna set it up and if just be like, you know what, speak into the microphone and we'll be good.
Yep.
But it's like I've watched 1,000 videos and I'm like, damn, dude, like I'm gonna end up screwing up my audio or something like that with like all these knobs and stuff. I think my girlfriend got me one for Christmas, so I'm just gonna sit there and play around with it a little bit. Maybe make my little sister do a couple couple practice podcasts, see what I need to do.
Yeah.
But do so like what has been some things that have helped your podcast grow to like the next level, you think?
Yeah. I mean, with that question, I really like what comes to mind really is names of people that I think have gone out of their way to help me and given me guest recommendations. There was a guy when I first started the podcast. His name's Gary Gillette, and he was working with Hell's Bay at the time, and I was, you know, I'd never done any type of brand work or contract deals, and he helped me figure out how to do that, and it's kind of like how does this look? Does this make sense? And I was doing it different than some other people. And, so I think the thing that's really helped is the people. Like the people are not just the subject of the podcast, but the people are also the reason that any success it's had has been because people have helped me. I'd say like on top of that, you know, uh, folks. One of the most helpful things is when folks on that are guests share. It's great to work with brands that care about the content you're making and aren't just like, how many people are going to hear about our brand, but actually care about the stories and the people and the purpose, and so those brands help share it. And then I think too, just consistency. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to be consistent. I think I've been doing it probably closer to 8 years than 7 years, and I'm still learning a lot. Like folks like April Vokey and Tom Rosenbauer, and there was a great podcast that ended, I think, around the time mine started, called Fish on the Brain. But like, there's people just. I look at April and I look at Tom Rosenbauer and I'm like, these folks have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of really great filmmakers and folks like that. I mean, it's consistency. Like they've just been doing an amazing job for a long time, and so I think that's important too.
Oh yeah, dude. And I think like I don't know if you ever did this like when you first started, dude. Like comparing your like trying to like compare your podcast to someone else's. I do like I get caught doing that myself all the time where I'm like I'm not doing this right. It's like I suck at
Yeah.
this. It's tough to get like break that habit, dude. Like I got into it bad like last year. I was like, dude, I got to be doing this. I had to be doing this. And then finally, I was just like, you know what? Like, this might sound bad. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it my way.
Hmm.
And I kind of just started doing it kind of like my way. And because, like, there's a bunch of them out there, like Rosenbauer's podcast, dude. It's probably that one and Andy Mills, dude, two of the bigger ones. And I was like, damn, I was trying to do it kind of like that. I'm like, doing it
Hmm.
like no like guests really, but I know
Hmm.
Millhouse does guests now, like a lot of guests. But I was like, damn, like I'm not going to be able to do this just essentially talking to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like Andy and Nikki have, obviously they have great guests, and they have, I think, some of the best video. Like Nikki does a great job with the
Oh yeah,
video. But I think everybody, has their own experiences that bring to the table, and you don't want to replicate any one person. You want
yeah,
to be yourself and find your own way. And I think like for me, like I'm really good at knowing where I want to go and having a picture of like what I want my life to look like or what I want my businesses to look like. But sometimes the distance between where I am and where I want to be, on a bad day, you can, yeah, be really hard on yourself and be
yeah,
frustrated. And, I was going through some of that recently where I was like, man, I said I was going to do this or I wanted to do this and I haven't done this. And it's kind of just in a negative headspace. And I was like, but if I could see where I am today, 7 years ago, I would be so stoked and encouraged and
yeah,
excited, but here I am sitting here bummed out because of XYZ. And I think it's just you gotta be in it for the long haul. And then also like just realize that, not everybody's for everybody. So there's people who don't like the stuff that I do, and that's okay. I
yeah,
can't please everybody, and don't miss the people who are following what you're doing in the way that you're doing it and really like it. And something that I've worked on a lot in my life that has very little to do with podcasting, but transitions to podcasting is I went through a really challenging season last year where I left ministry. I had a lot of issues in my life that I needed to confront and deal with and caused a lot of pain. And I realized that I really struggled with like self validation and focused the past year on like, what does this person think of me? What does this person think of me? What does this person think of me? But actually saying, what do I think of me and who do I want to be and what kind of man do I want to be and what changes do I need to make in my life? And that list was really long. And I wasn't changing to impress people. I wasn't trying to confront these issues. Uh, in order to for people to say, oh, he's a good guy or something, like but was doing it for myself. And I think like as a podcaster, and whether you're a painter, you're a podcaster, you're a videographer, like you have to be focused on self validation and saying that at the end of the day you're not going to make everybody happy, but are you happy with what you're doing and where you're going?
right,
And that's a longer conversation for another podcast. But I will say that for me that's been really important the past year. And it's like, hey, like what, I'm a I got a lot of things from my podcast to Drifter to me personally that I need to work on and improve and address. And at the same time, like I can look in the mirror and say, okay, like I'm happy with who I'm becoming. And, if some people don't like that, that's okay. If some people think that somebody else is a better podcaster, I probably agree with them. it doesn't bother
In the
me,
same
you
way.
know.
Yeah, dude. I'm like,
So I mean, so yeah, I think that's and it frees you. Comparison is the thief of joy,
yeah,
and it's just like I think it's whether you're a podcaster or people do that in fishing. Every day you can get on social media and see somebody who went somewhere cool and caught something you haven't,
yeah.
and it can make you take a lot of stuff for granted. And I don't want to contribute to that, and I don't want to personally participate in that.
Dude, and that's kind of like something that I've struggled with too, where I'm like, you know what? Like, that's where I had to kind of sit down and be like, you know what? I want to do this because it makes me happy. And it's like I kind of had to sit there and kind of battle with myself. We all do it. It's like I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, I wonder if so and so likes me. I was like, you know what? I don't really. I had to like look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I like myself, and that's all I really need. My
Hmm.
girlfriend likes me. My mom and dad like me. I was like, you know what? That's all. Like, I mean, it's an inner battle trying to do that though. But you know what? When you get on the other side of it, you feel so much better. Like in the long run for it, you know.
Yeah, or just like the little things too, like in the fishing industry,
Yeah.
it's like, such and such can't fish, and you're like, what? They said that, and you're like, oh, okay, well, and you hit a buddy up, you say, you want to fish tomorrow? And you're like, turns out I can, and I know what they mean by that, but I just
Yeah.
think like you got to just not take that stuff. And I think when you're getting feedback, sometimes you need to ask yourself, like, do I agree with that? Like, are they making a good point? Like, but at the end of the day, yeah, I think it's really important to create content, and as a podcaster to create content that you like,
Yeah.
and ask questions that you really care about. And some of those guests will become friends, and some of those guests will be people who are gracious enough to give you time, and it won't be, you know, you won't be wearing matching BFF bracelets and, texting every day, but
Yeah.
you can just be grateful for the time and say, okay. And so I think like yeah, I think you just got to learn how to accept that there's always going to be things that you want to improve, and learn how to enjoy the things that are working along the way,
Yeah. I think like how I look at it, and I tell a lot of people, like I have a buddy that kind of like asked me some questions. I was like, dude, I was like, you know what? You can't rush this. You just gotta like, you got to embrace the grind because it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
Hmm. Yeah, I think embrace the grind, and learn how to prioritize like what matters most, and and learn how to. I think we're all just in this big learning process where I've had to take things and say, okay, that's something that I'd like to improve or do, but I don't have the capacity right now, so I'm going to kind of, that might be a next year thing, or that might be a 2 year thing,
Yeah.
or but I think like if you try to think about everything that you want to improve at once and you try to act on it, sometimes that can be pretty overwhelming. And in the meantime, like you can forget why you got into this, which back full circle to what I said, which is like, I just wanted to meet people and hear their story and
Yeah.
learn, and I'm getting to do that. And I want to produce the best stuff I can. And I have a lot of ideas about how I can make that better. And I have some action in those areas. But at the end of the day, I never want that to pull away from my own enjoyment of getting to meet these people and have these conversations.
Exactly. I feel like when the fun gets taken away from it, like that's how it was with me with like tournament bass fishing. I was like starting to run myself ragged trying to like go and fish every tournament, trying. I was like, dude, like this isn't fun anymore. And it's like that's why I
Hmm.
essentially sold all my shit because at the end of the day, I really couldn't fish better than half the people out there on the lake. And I was like, you know what? Like that was a tough thing to do. Where I was like, you know what? Sold my boat. I mean, a thief made the rod and reel sale thing easy. They stole them all out of my truck. But that like I was just like, you know what? Like this isn't fun anymore. I'm gonna distance it and I I always like to fly fish and it's fun. Like I'm having fun with it. I haven't stuck my name in the tournament thing yet and I don't see myself doing it just because like I know how I get when you put $500 in a pot in a tournament and I'm just not going to enjoy it anymore. And I think that's kind of like one of the things I've been trying to do with like podcasting too, where it's like I got to keep it fun.
Hmm.
But when did you realize that you could do podcasting for a living?
Um, so I would say probably about 3 or 4 years ago, like I realized that there's probably a path forward. And I think like one of the biggest things with becoming a great angler, becoming a podcaster, but a lot of these like cool things that I've met people that have done these awesome things with their lives, like the figuring out how to have the time and capacity to do it is the real secret sauce, I think. It comes down to like the calendar.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the people that I've interviewed that are really great anglers or really great captains, like they've put in their 10,000 hours, and but everybody embraces the 10,000 hour thing. But a lot of people, um, they don't think about how am I going to get that? What's it going to take to get me there? And
Right.
so, I realize there's probably a path forward. And then, I kind of toyed around with, okay, if I can grow the audience or if I can get the sponsors. And then we had the Drifter Club idea. And then truthfully, I had, personal issues in my life that kind of forced the push, to be honest. Like, I wish I could sit here and say that, I had this elaborate plan and I had it all figured out. But just some things that I was struggling with in my life and some choices I had made caused me to have to step out of ministry. And when I stepped out of ministry, it was like I need to do something, and gave myself a few months to figure that out, and was able to put together some pieces and set up some stuff that was going to allow me to do it full time.
Yeah. I think that's something like I'm trying to get to now is like I think I asked you a little bit ago is it's like I don't know my next step. Like I got to figure out how I can like kind of go above what I'm doing now. And like that's like a daunting thought. Like you said earlier hosted trips. Like I'm tossing around that idea lightly right now and I think it's just going to be like one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I just got to like try and nail something down. But it's like I don't know how how I price it out to where it's like I don't know how you do it. I'll probably ask you after this, but like how to price it out so that I'm like still not like making money on it, but at least getting myself there, you know?
Yeah, I'd be happy to have that conversation. And I'm about to have to run because my kids are about to be here. But what I would say, I think, is like a really important principle on all of that I feel like I'm still learning, but I feel grateful that I have kind of held this thought is you cannot, if you allow fear of failure to dictate you, like you're only going to do something if it's going to work, it's going to be really hard for you to be innovative, to be creative. And so sometimes you just got to try something and test the waters. And I do a lot of that. And I'll do it, and more times than not, like the little test. Sometimes people can't even tell I'm running a test. I'd be like, "Well, that sucked. That didn't work." But that doesn't mean I sucked, right? It just means that okay, let me, this idea of like step, step, step. It's okay, like you can step, and then you can say that didn't work, that didn't feel right, and then take a step back. And so I think like you have to be willing to do that. And I would encourage you to do that. And I think that's true with everybody listening to this podcast in some capacity. Is you don't have to be 100% sure. The further I get into this, the more I realize that a lot of people just they try to be themselves, they try to do what they love, they try to put themselves in opportunities where you know they can chase those things. And there's a lot of failure along the way, but if you learn from it, if you can, the real failure is to not try something and then spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if I tried it. And another failure too is to take a step and it not work, but to not be able to admit it and take that step back. Like life is not like one step and in a line. Like you take a step, you take a step back, you take a side step, you
Yeah.
you hop, you jump, and the truth is too,
100%.
like from a community standpoint, people carry you along the way. And
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people carry me along the way. So I'd be happy to talk with you more about it, but I do have to run. But Ryan, thanks so much for having me on, and I love what you're doing with the
Thank you,
Trout
dude.
Wrangler podcast.
I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. I'm going to stop this quick. I might have to have some tracks upload.
that's fine.
All right. Cool deal. Yeah, there we go. What's up, guys? That was Mr. Hunter Levine with the Captain's Collective podcast and the Drifters Fishing Club. Um, did you have a good podcast, sir? New little EP back there, guy. Um, you were a little squirrely man during the episode, jumping up on my lap and shit. But good, you're resting now. Really, really, really good. But so Hunter had to run. But we did have the 5 songs for the Trout Tunes playlist presented by Fweta Coffee. Um, I will give you my songs and I will give you his that he pre-sent me. Um, so where mine? Let's see. So the 5 that I had were Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger, Nautical Wheelers by Jimmy Buffett, Knock Knock by Mac Miller, and then I had Taste by Sabrina Carpenter. She was on my Spotify Wrapped. Big Sabrina Carpenter fan over here. And then Reverend by Green Sky Bluegrass and Billy Strings, and then Sunshine on My Shoulders by John Denver. So Hunter had Sweet Danger by Obong Jr. I think that's how you pronounce it. Please tell me if I was not pronouncing that right. Vacation by the Dirty Heads. Making a Living, Not a Killin' by Leon Meissen. Great artist if you haven't listened to him. Really cool dude. He will be at March Fest this year. Helpless by John Mayer. Work by Gangstar. But really awesome episode. Big thank you to Hunter for coming on. I had a blast chopping it up with him. And just an all around great dude. Had a blast. Big thanks to him. And then that's all I got for this week. We will have another episode on Friday. Until Friday, I will see you guys later. Oh, Boofka.